Hello friend, Amit is here. Today I'm going to explain about that how we can create a RESTful web application utilizing some project kind of thing or something. So here exactly what I'm going to do here. So here we will learn step by step how to develop CURD RESTful application using a JAX-RS framework. Here what exactly we are going to do, we are developing one kind of the application where we can create a user and we can read the user information, that is called R, and we can update that information and we can delete this information. So this is the basic concept of the REST where we can do that multiple operation. So now we are going to create one project where we will create, read, update and delete user related information and that RESTful API using a Jersey, and we are going to use JAX-RS framework. Here we have used Jersey version 2.20 with JDK 8 that I will explain about that few. This is just basic Maven project. You have to just create a new Maven project and just other. Here you just search the Maven project and just create this Maven project, and you just utilize the same pom.xml what the pom we utilize here. So I created this Jersey CURD example, CURD example, and I show you that how my pom is looking. So this is the pom.xml. As usual, we added the model version, group ID, artifact ID, package version, name and URL. This thing is by default, and Maven repository and all be added here. So very basic, all the jar file that we required to create this project. Main thing is that we have used Jersey version 2.27 and we use a latest JDK 8 to develop of JAX-RS application. And now we are using one more thing is here. If you see in this application, and then little bit confusion about that, here web.xml we not added anything. So what exactly we did here, so we have the using a servlet 3.0 with application path. So here we using a resource, this API resource configuration. So we are using a application @application part. So this is a similar kind of thing what the XML registration we are doing before of that. So servlet 3.0 provided some annotation way to register it. So here application using @application path with servlet 3.0 use @application path, and we are provide the resource here. So what the resource we will provide, it will be take automatically. So we are providing a /API any resources annotation to configure Jersey servlet container. So we have register container here. So packages where our application is main thing is there. So we have added all @path kind of thing here, com, visual path, Jersey and resource here. So I added just logger here. So this is a very basic example where we have to be utilize all the exception kind of thing, and generally we can add one user, we can delete the user, we can get all the user kind of thing. So here you need Maven 3, JDK 8, Jersey 2.27, Apache Tomcat 8.5 and any Eclipse you have to download. So if you have this 5 things, then you can easily create your application. Maven you need 3, and JDK 8 or 1.8 and Jersey you need 2.27. That 2.27 version we already see in the POM. 2.27 version we just utilize. And Apache Tomcat you need any Tomcat that more than 7.0. I think before of that we could not run this latest servlet 3.0. so you must need this Tomcat. I recommend it to 8 plus 8.5 or something, or anything is more than 7 it will work. You need one Eclipse ID or anything, any relevant ID, and here we are using a servlet 3.0. so here this is the basic thing we have to utilize. So you have to create one Maven web application project. So you just have to do like that only. You just have to right click and new Maven project. Other you have to go Maven and you have to just create a Maven project. Any work location where or create a simple web project. Next you just create it. So once the Maven project is created, you have to create quick start Java web application project by using the Maven archetype web application template, or you just use a few commands also to create this project, but this is a right click and you can create it immediately. So package creating a structure like a pom dot. Here I will show you that. So this way we have to create a project. So here index.jsp is there. It have a very simple messages, and because we are using a 3.0 servlet, so no need to add anything here. Let them like that only, and put all the code in this structure. Under src main Java, just put com.visualpath jersey.client and com.visualpath jersey.config, com.visualpath jersey.exception, where we put all the exception that we are going to throw. This is our customized exception. So this is recommended here. So global exception kind of thing also here. So this is a good practice when you will create any application kind of thing. So you can create all the exception that you are going to throw. So we have a dependency also. So we have the dependency of Jersey related, and I already explained about that. We are using a Java 8, we are using a Tomcat, anything 7 plus. So we have a data model user kind of thing. So we will create one class, user class, which have a data model of RESTful CURD operation. So I have used Jersey, some JSON supported to build feature of the Jersey media. So here I will go one by one and I will explain about that how this function is creating. So here we have a user. So user we have ID, name and email. By default class is here. Sometime by default class by default constructor we needed, and we know that if we added any customized constructor, then JVM not directly putting a default constructor. So because of that I added a default constructor here. And parameterized constructor, what we are doing, just what the object we are creating, just initialize that, and we have some getter setter method here. And our main thing is that here we creating this exception also. I will explain about that. And we have a user services here. So user services, what exactly method we are going to utilize? We wrote this functionality in separate places, and we can utilize when we can use user resource. So user resources, we have all the operation that we are going to utilize. So we are using a one get with fetch all. Here we are returning all data. So whenever we pass this users, then it will be point out this get method and it will be returned, because it is start with @path here, and we don't have any path in this method. So by default, whenever we use this URL like a users, it will be directly point to this method. And next, like that, again get is there. Here what we are doing, user ID, and we will pass some ID, then through that it will be fetch and return the particular users. So this is a this method is responsible to return back all the users informations, but this method is also is a get. That path is a user. After that users, again user, like that. Here this path is like that, means here users dot user ID, and this bracket means this is a dynamically changing, so it can be access anything. And here we are using @path from, and we will assigning this ID int ID. So anything it will become like 1 2 3. After that URL we will send anything, like if we send 1, then it will be stored here int ID equal to 1. So we'll user dot fetch by ID method will call that fetch by ID method I added in the service method, and here we will call this fetch by ID with ID, and we will go through that ID and we will return that user if we'll find. If not find, then we will return the null. So here this operation we will do like that. And once we will deploy this application in the Tomcat, we can access either through directly browser, either Postman, and we can access this functionality through that coding also. So I had created this thing, user resource client kind of thing, and through that I will show you that how we can access all our functionality. So once I explain these applications, it will be very easy to understand the functionality of REST applications, and you can easily understand about the REST applications. So here we can do we can create a resource classes named user resource classes with create user, get all the user, update users, delete users, and get user by ID. That the functionality here. User resource, I will go to sequential and explain just overview. I am giving the overview here, and once the overview complete, I will explain line by line the code. So here are the multiple deployment option in the servlet 3.0. So container objects are a application defined by the implementation of the custom application subclasses, and we have a web.xml is necessary at all, but and the @application path annotation can be used annotation the custom application subclasses and define the base application URI for all JXRS resource to configuration the applications. So we'll create a user service classes to service in the memory object user kind of thing. So user service, what we are going to do, so all the operation fetch all that have a very basic concepts, basic calculation to return the particular thing, like that how to fetch by user, fetch all, and create delete kind of thing, it will be work. So now the Jersey test framework oriented as and the internal tool used to verify correct implementation of server side component also. So if we want to develop a test using a Jersey test framework, we have to Jersey test framework also. So I already created a one user resource kind of thing, user resource client. So we could view that client, and we can test through that. So like that here, I already explained about that. Here we have this Chrome, through that we can access our application, or we have a Postman also here. I already explained about the Postman in the first project. So through the Postman we can utilize this thing also. So our REST client is there. So this ARC REST client, through that also we can access our application. So when I explain this JAX-RS JSON CURD example, I show you that how we can use ARC application. Now here we have this thing, we can access this thing here also. This is the get. So now this application is not running. Once it runs, it will work. And the third way, what I'm going to explain about that. So we have some small code, through that we can also access this application. So user resource client is here. So through that we can access application. So user resource used to test, defined as a part of the user resource test class. The overridden configuration method return configure resource configure of the test application that contains only the user resources, and resource configuration is a subclass of JAX-RS application. So the Jersey, when the communication classes is started, we could call this main method here one by one to access this thing. So I already decided like a get user. So get user here, so we have to create it. I created this client, and what the URL we are going to hit, I already here. So kind of the method, what the method we are going to create, and if it is returned, then what the class it will be returned, get a string class it is returning, and we are printing here. So get user also is here. So get users, again that URL is here, and create user is here, and update user is here. So through that also we can check that how the functionality is working. So I'm going to explain now the step by step. This is just an overview, and what changes is here. Yeah, that URL I changed, so it will be not work. It's correct right now. So close all. So now I already explained that you just right click and create a Maven project, and after that you just create one package com.visualpath.jersey.client, and next you have to just create this thing com.visualpath.jersey that and model, you just create a users. So user, when you will start, you have to add this @XML root element. So XML root element is a part of the Java X XML bind annotation XML. So you no need to do anything, it will be automatically bind, and if binded class we can share anywhere in the network. So because of that, otherwise you have to do lot of things here to share with the network these classes. So it is a very easy, just mark with XML root element, and it is a bind annotation XML root element. So now we are going to do operation in three things, that is ID, name and email. So all the private here, and I added the default constructor here because we know that if we utilize any parameterized constructor, JVM not going to add default constructor automatically. So whenever we would like to add both the constructor, parameterized constructor, and as well as the default constructor, we have to specify explicitly. So I added here, and here through the parameterized constructor also we can create an instance and initialize that thing. So for the initialization I use this id equal to id, this name equal to name, and this email equal to email. And again we need some getter and setter kind of thing for initialize that particular thing. So here we have a get id, set id, get name, set name, get email, and set email. So this is a very simple Pojo classes, very simple object that we are going to transfer through the network, as well as we are going to do the operation on this user only. So we want to create a multiple user. The multiple user, any user have three things: id, name, email. So the second thing, if we want to fetch all the user, we can fetch that. If we want to fetch user by id, we also can get it. If we want to delete user by id, we can delete it. As well as if we want to update some features like that id 101, I would like to change that email id of the particular user, so we can do it. So this is the first thing. And API response is here. So API response, it's just like a error code and a string messages kind of thing that we are going to utilize in API exception and other thing here. So here error code is there and messages is there. So error code, that the same thing here, default constructor and parameterized constructor and getter and setter. Parameterized constructor, through that we can instantiate and initialize both thing at a time. Here the default constructor, we can only instantiate the object when initialization is required, we can do through the setter. And now we created some 4 exception. This is an optional thing, either you will create, either you will throw the any kind of exception also, but I just want to explain about the custom exception kind of thing. So I created 4 custom exception, like a API exception, bad request exception, not found exception, resource not found exception. You can create a multiple exception kind of thing, this kind of thing, and just try to increase this exception like that when user is not found. So you just create a single user not found exception, multi user not found exception kind of thing. You can extend this exception functionality. So I have 4 exception here. So anywhere API exception will not come this bad request not found and resource not found exception, so it will be go to the API exception main thing. And next we have a bad request exception, and next we have the not found exception and resource not found exception thing is here. So this is again very simple thing. So API exception, all just put com.visualpart.jersey.exception. So all classes, it is extending the exception. So when it is a extend the exception, it is a if it is extend a runtime exception classes, then it will be come under the runtime, otherwise it's a compile time only. So API exception is extending exception classes, and we have a private int code and API exception code and messages that we are passing here, and anywhere we have to require, then we will create this API response. Here we will add error code and messages that we are going to create here. So code and messages is here. So not found exception also have same thing. So not found exception, again the code and messages we can just initialize here, and resource not found exception again same thing. So resource not found exception, we are just doing that messages only. And now we have a API exception, again the message and code here. So this all exception classes come under the com.visualpart.jersey.exception. The next thing, model is done and this thing is done. Then we have to create this config classes. So config classes, what the XML we are doing, before of that we added a Jersey and servlet container related thing, and what the URL exactly we are going to where our services is available, that information we have to provide under the XML. But now servlet 3.0 no longer utilization of the web.xml. So without web.xml also we can utilize, we can at least write all the functionality like that, pointing the particular service and hitting that service or instantiating that service by using a API, this application path kind of thing. And servlet 3.0 is provide annotation way also to start the our container kind of thing here. So here what we have to do, we have to write this @application path, and this initial API means URL, that URL you want to publish. And now we have this configuration, they are extending a resource config classes, and we have override that app resource config, and here we have to provide all the packages, that packages we are going to means our all the services available there, all the endpoint available there, and this is just for the logger and failure messages here. So now this is the main thing. We'll go this com.visualpath jersey and resource this packages, and keep it in the mind, if something like that, if you not write the exact packages name, some spelling mistake or something will happen there, then you will get 404 kind of exception. So make sure that your services and this packages must be the same. So I will ensure that I'm going to ensure com.visualpath jersey and resource, com.visualpath jersey and resource here. This is a perfect, and here we have a user resource. So user resource, what we will do, we have added @path, that I already explained about that path. We will point here, means it will be that particular URL will be created. And now we have a get method, so it not have any path, means by default when we will hit, this method is responsible to generate a particular request. So this get method is responsible to produce media type application JSON, and now we are calling returning list of user, and this is a fetch all, and we are returning user service dot fetch all. So what is inside that user service dot fetch all? I'll show you that. So now we are fetch all, here we are using a created one user here. So this user list kind of thing, where we have a user as an object, and this user as the same user where we have ID, name and email. So here user services fetch all, whenever we call this method, we will use user dot add new user, new user, new user. We will add 3 user ABC, and we will return it. And so this fetch all method will produce one list of users object and return back. So exactly here we can do that DB related operation. We can hit the DB and fetch the data and return back. So now I just want to keep it very simple and very clear. That reason I added here fetch all this kind of the method, and through that we can customize our applications, and here it will be returned fetch all the users. And the next method, there have a get, same parameter like a users. After that user ID, and here some integer value we have to pass. So users user ID 1. So 1 will, if we means put here in the ID, so according of that we will fetch by ID, will call and return back. One more thing is here produce. We already means explain about this thing, how the we are going to produce here. And one more thing is here fetch by. So fetch by, after that you see that at the rate path param. I already explained this thing in my previous video. So at the rate path param, what using? They are using path param what we are going to assign here. So we are going to assign one like a user slash user ID 1, then that value will be stored under this ID. So path param ID, this ID to this ID is map, this both must be the equal, and after that you have to write anything, int ID, ID 1, 2, 3, anything you have to just created one name. So once this match is completely means correct, and like user ID or something we are sending a string or not like an integer here, then that will be stored under this ID, and through that we can fetch. So now we user service dot fetch by ID is here, so we are passing ID and we are fetching, and once that will come we can create an entity user and build it and return back, and response dot ok means 200 dot in entity, and we are pass this user and we will build and return back. So user service dot fetch, you will see that what fetch method is doing. So fetch method will come with ID as a integer we are passing there. Now here we are using a long here, so no problem. So throw not found exception if it is a not found. So for user 2, what the user we are getting here, and fetch all. So fetch all if ID equal to user dot get ID, what ID we are passing here, if both are the same then we are return back, else throw not found exception and we are returning a null. So it's a very simple. If we find the ID is match, like if we will pass 101, 102, 103 anything, then we will return the particular object. If we pass 101 as ID here, then we will get this object whose ID is equal to 101, name is equal to Sumit, and email is equal to sumit@gmail.com. If we not find anything here like that, I am sending ID equal to 104 and 104 is not under this list, then it will be returned not found exception and it will be returned null. So it is throw not found exception with the particular messages and it's returned null. The same next method, again it is a get with path user ID, and we are doing the same path ID, the same operation, resource dot get path ID, and we are returning this user, new user creating, and we are returning. So this I just created this method because here we are using some service method, but here just want to create some object and we will return back. So this get is like that, and this get again get with ID something, and if the exception particular ID will pass, then not found exception we will send. So like a user's exception and it will pass some ID, then it will be so. Many method can clear our goal, through that we can easily understand the functionality and we can create multiple method, and we can utilize a RESTful applications services whenever it is required. So next method is the post. So now we see that we not have any path here, this path kind of thing. So it will be utilize the same path users, and now its conflict will come when we send the user maybe this get or this post. So how the automatically REST will verify which method is responsible. So thing is that whenever we'll send this request with the get, this automatically involve, and this method is responsible to return the response. And if we not send if we send this URL with post, then this method is responsible to return a response. And how this response is returning, here they have a produce and consume both the application and JSON. So through that user dot create user, so it will be get as a users as a JSON file, and after that it will be called create user and create the user. So here create user dot add user. So once user information will become like 105 some name Mohan, Sohan or something, some Gmail ID kind of thing will come. So here through that we can create a user. Again one post is there where path something will become requested exception kind of thing. So we will return back internal server error exception. So again put method is there that have a user and ID, this kind of thing. So path param we will use this ID, both ID is map. So we'll get long ID and store here and users information here. So through that we can update the particular ID. If we want to update this 101 with some name or email ID, we can update. And delete method, again if we send users user and the particular 101, so through that we can go here and we can delete it. So delete, I not added anything here. So just list we will fetch that, and after that what list will come, we just delete it. This is a very simple example. Through that we can do that operation. Here we have this operation also, and we can run this application. We can know that how we can achieve our functionality and how this will be work. So now all the coding task is done. So we have to do next thing to run it. Right click and run as Tomcat server, run on server. So I already have Tomcat 7.0. You can utilize 7.0 or you can utilize 8 or anything. I just going to deploy here in 7.0 itself. Once successfully deploy, you will get the successfully port number. I am using 8080 port. So we'll get that starting servlet engine Tomcat, this one, and it is a successfully start. Now I just want to delete this messages. Now we see that automatically our index.xml will come and hello world I am able to see that. So I just close it. Now we can hit our application through that postman, this users, yeah, and we will get that Amit, Sumit, Mohan, all three information. Same get call we can hit here. Before of that ABC is there. Now it will be modified and Amit, Mohan and Sumit will become. And as well as the third way, what the program I wrote here, user resource client, through that we can access these applications. So now get the user, yeah, get the user we will call, and we will see that we are getting a user information or not. Yes, so here also we are getting this information. So all the three way we can utilize any of the way to testing our applications. So what I did here, I created a client config. Through client config equal to new client config, and this is a client config is a type of org glassfish jersey client and client config. So here client dot registered this thing, and we can utilize here. This is a static. So once get user will be call. So again client builder dot new client and create client config. What the thing here we are adding, that will be add here, and after that client dot target. So we are going to hit this get all user, this URL with path users. So at the rate path what we wrote, we just add here path user. Even we will not add, we can utilize here also, but this the way we can do it. Now we have to do request, we have to add something. So request media type equal to JSON, and header we have what we want to send, and get as a string classes we have to specify. So what the entity we will get, we just have to print here. So get user also same thing what we are did here, nothing more changes. Here create user have some specific thing, so we have to create some users name, and after that we have to post here entity, and we have to put this user here, and after that we will call this one. And update user, again we have to update user with the ID or something, Ramesh, or Ramesh name we have to change, Ramesh to Suresh we can change, and through that we can achieve this functionality. Delete user, all again user here, and delete user, we can achieve this functionality. This is a very simple classes, just go through this classes. We'll call one by one. Get user, get users, get user, create user, update user, and delete users. So get user I already called. I will call you that second get users. So now we are getting that get user because we are passing some ID 101. So here get user, we are passing 101. So we are getting this thing. Now we will pass 1, then we will get the particular 1 related information. So Gmail 1 me is here. So we will run second Java application. So again 1, I think it's not deploy. Get user 101 path equal to 101, and maybe both have this same thing, both have a same thing. It will be getting 101 ID equal to this one. Okay, so create user, we will call this create user next. Yeah, 201 means created, the user is created. So what create user we created? We created some users whose name is Ramesh and ID equal to 1. So we'll see that. No, it will be not come because we have that dynamic way. So we already have only one list, through that we are getting it. Because that service have only one list, and through that we are not going to update this list here. Okay, update user and delete user, like that we can perform it. And here also you can do this thing like that, or you can utilize this postman also to hit this services, and you can achieve this functionality. So you can utilize any of that client to test these applications. So here this structure, you just create this structure, create all the code, and after that you have to deploy under the Tomcat, and you have to run, right click and run as a run on server. And once it is a run perfectly, you have to run this client one by one, like a create this thing or something you have to test. You have to change your logic here also, means if you want to change your logic like adding, deleting on this thing, you have to change here. Like why that always is coming like a fetch user, because I already hard coded here. So anything like add user or create user is coming, it is not doing that any operation here. So you have to modify this for classes, and you can create a more dynamic way to add, delete, update this thing. But main thing is that here in this applications we will learn step by step how to develop CURD RESTful API using a Jersey JAX RS framework, and we utilize a Maven 3, JDK 8, Jersey 2.7, Apache Tomcat 8.0 and any Eclipse. So we quickly start a Java web application project by using a Maven build or something, Maven new project or something, and here after that we have to just created a project a structure and we added a code in correct position, and after that we will right click and run at a Tomcat. So here we are using a servlet 3.0 for pointing our API URL kind of thing. So I recommended that you must utilize that particular URL as a Tomcat more than 7. So I am using a 7 here, so 7 you can also use, but recommended that you can use 8.5 kind of thing. So here we can do the create user, get all the user, update user, delete user and get user by ID. I had added very simple code here, so you can modify this code and test your knowledge also. And I just go through one more time. So I have to first create this users. So I have users with ID, name and email, default constructor, parameterized constructor with getter and setter kind of thing. And now we have a API resource response kind of thing. Here we have a error code and messages. So this getter and setter and default constructor, parameterized constructor, this object will be used to throw that particular exception, and through that we will notify the particular messages and code. So now we have a 4 exception classes that will be come under com.visualpart.jersey.exception. So now we have a API exception, bad request exception, not found exception and resource not found exception. All are the subclass of the exception. So I already created an exception extending that exception, and here we have int or super message we are using. So all the classes have this code and messages, through that we are throwing that particular exception. So after that we have a API resource config. So this is a replacement of the particular XML. Here we are using a @application path and we are providing this API, and what packages we are going to utilize, package equal to something we are providing here. And now the main thing is here we have a resources. So user resources is here, all the method that we are going to do with the operation, it's available here. So we will start with path and we have a users. So we have a get with fetch all, get with fetch with ID, get with user ID and particular ID. Here we are sending something else, and we have a exception.id. So we are throwing that particular exception, we are checking that our exception is working or not. And we have a post to create a service, create a user. We have a post to again related to exception filter. We have a put to update that user with the particular ID, and we have a delete to delete with the ID. And we will right click and run here, and after that we can test through that client also, that we have to create the particular client config also. And otherwise we can through that Chrome also we can access all the get, otherwise ERC, through that we can access this applications. This is a very simple application with a single project. You can modify and you can extend this functionality as much as you want, and I am sure through that explanation you easily understand all the functionality. So just go through that, and if you want to modify this classes, you just modify it. If you want to add some database also, you can add it. You want to some online memory kind of thing, you just utilize that on memory kind of thing here also. So as much as you want you can modify that, but this is a basic structure that you have to create for the any project. Just go through that and try to understand the functionality as well as the project concept, as well as that features that provided the REST. jersey. So thanks for watching this video, and